The morning sun had barely risen over the city skyline when Miguel Hernandez pulled into the underground parking garage of Westlake Technologies. He parked his 15-year-old Honda in the far corner, away from the shiny luxury cars that filled most spaces. At 52, Miguel had perfected his morning routine, arrive by 5:30 a.m., change into his gray uniform, and begin his work before most employees even woke up. Miguel loved these quiet morning hours. The massive glass building felt like his own as he moved through empty hallways with his cleaning cart, checking items off his mental list. First the lobby, then the conference rooms, followed by the employee break areas. By the time the first executives arrived at 7:30, the building would smell of lemon polish and fresh coffee. For 15 years, Miguel had been the head janitor at Westlake Technologies. He took pride in his work, even if most people barely noticed him. The building was 42 floors of gleaming surfaces and modern design, a testament to the company's success in the tech industry. Miguel knew every corner, every plant that needed watering and which executives preferred their trash emptied twice daily. The executive floor was always his last stop. Floor 42 housed the offices of the company's leadership, including CEO Robert Bennett. Miguel had cleaned Bennett's office every day for over a decade, but had spoken to the man only a handful of times. That was how things worked. Miguel remained invisible, a ghost who made messes disappear while the important people did important things. This Tuesday morning started like any other. Except for the unusual spring storm that pounded the city with rain, Miguel hummed to himself as he rode the service elevator to the executive floor, pulling his cart behind him. The doors opened to reveal a hallway that was typically empty at this hour, but today something was different. A young woman stood at the other end, struggling with several large boxes stacked in her arms. She was trying to press the button for the regular elevator while balancing her load, but the boxes kept shifting dangerously. Miguel recognized her immediately, Sophia Bennett, the CEO's daughter. She had started working for the company's charitable foundation about 3 months ago. Miguel had seen her photo in the company newsletter but had never spoken to her. For a moment, Miguel hesitated. Executives and their families rarely acknowledged the cleaning staff, and he had learned to stay out of their way. But the boxes looked heavy and the young woman was clearly struggling. "Let me help you with those," Miguel called out, leaving his cart and hurrying down the hallway. Sophia turned, relief washing over her face as Miguel took the top 2 boxes from her stack. They were heavier than he expected, filled with what felt like books. "Thank you so much," she said, blowing a strand of dark hair from her face. "I thought I could manage in one trip, but I clearly overestimated my carrying capacity." Miguel smiled. "No problem. Where are these going?" "To the foundation office on 38, she replied. "We're collecting educational materials for a program we're launching next month." They walked to the elevator together, an unlikely pair, the CEO's daughter in her professional blue dress and blazer, and the head janitor in his gray uniform. Miguel pressed the button with his elbow, balancing the boxes carefully. "I've seen you before," Sophia said suddenly. "You're—" "Miguel," he offered. "Head of building maintenance." "Right," she nodded. "You've been here a long time, haven't you?" Miguel was surprised she knew anything about him. 15 years this August. The elevator arrived, and they stepped in. Miguel noticed Sophia was soaking wet from the rain. "Did you just arrive? The storm is pretty bad out there." Sophia nodded, looking down at her damp clothes. "I got caught in it. My umbrella turned inside out halfway from the parking garage." "April storms are the worst," Miguel agreed. "Too cold for rain, too warm for snow." They rode down in silence for a moment. Miguel wondered if he should say more, or if he had already overstepped by starting a conversation. But Sophia spoke again. 15 years is impressive. "You must have seen a lot of changes around here." Miguel chuckled. "When I started, this building was half its current size. Your father had just become CEO. The company had about 300 employees then. And now there's over 3,000, Sophia said. "Dad always talks about those early days. Says they were more fun, less pressure." The elevator stopped at floor 38 and they stepped out together. Miguel followed Sophia down another hallway to a glass door labeled Westlake Community Foundation. Inside, the space looked different from the rest of the building. There were colorful posters on the walls showing community events and children's artwork. Several desks were arranged in an open plan, though no one else had arrived yet. "You can put those right here," Sophia said, setting her boxes down near a conference table. Miguel did the same, careful not to disturb the neat stacks of papers already there. "Thank you again for your help," she said, straightening up. "I have about 10 more boxes in my car that need to come up." Miguel glanced at his watch. He still had the executive floor to clean before the workday officially began, but something made him offer more help. "I can give you a hand with those too, if you'd like. The rain is coming down pretty hard." Sophia looked surprised but pleased. "Are you sure? I don't want to take you away from your work." "It's no problem," Miguel assured her. "The executives won't arrive for another hour or so." Together, they took the elevator down to the parking garage. On the way, Sophia explained more about the foundation's work, how they supported education initiatives in underserved areas, funded technology training programs, and provided scholarships for promising students. "I just joined 3 months ago," she said. "Dad wanted me to learn the business from the ground up, but I convinced him my skills would be better used here." Miguel listened, impressed by her enthusiasm. At 25, she seemed genuinely committed to making a difference, not just taking an easy job at her father's company. In the parking garage, Sophia led him to a modest blue sedan, not the luxury car he might have expected from the CEO's daughter. The trunk was packed with boxes of books, art supplies, and educational materials. "We're launching a new after-school program in the Riverdale district," she explained, as they loaded their arms. "The schools there are struggling with budget cuts, and a lot of kids don't have access to basic learning resources." Miguel stopped, the box in his arms suddenly feeling lighter. "Riverdale? That's my neighborhood." Sophia looked at him with genuine interest. "Really? Do you know the community center on Elm Street?" "I volunteer there on weekends," Miguel said, surprised at the connection. "They have a small woodworking shop where I teach basic carpentry to the kids." "No way." Sophia's face lit up. "That's exactly where we're planning to set up our program." As they rode back up with the remaining boxes, Miguel found himself telling Sophia about the center, how it served as a lifeline for many families in the area, providing everything from English classes for adults to homework help for children. He explained how budget cuts had threatened several of their programs, including his carpentry class. "The director is trying her best, but there's only so much they can do with limited funding," Miguel said. "Many of the parents work 2 or 3 jobs. Without the center, their kids would have nowhere to go after school." Sophia listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about the community's needs. By the time they finished bringing up all the boxes, Miguel realized he had talked more in the last 30 minutes than he typically did in a week at work. "I should get back to my cleaning," he said finally, feeling slightly embarrassed about taking up so much of her time. "Of course," Sophia said, "but I'd love to hear more about your work at the center sometime. Maybe you could show me around next time I'm there. It would help us design our program better if we understood what's already working." Miguel nodded, surprised by the request. "I'd be happy to. I'm there most Saturdays from noon to 4. I'll stop by this weekend," Sophia promised, extending her hand. "Thank you again for your help, Miguel. It was really nice meeting you properly." As they shook hands, Miguel felt something shift. For 15 years, he had been practically invisible in this building, doing his work quietly while life went on around him. Now suddenly he had made a connection that bridged his 2 worlds, his job at Westlake and his community work in Riverdale. He returned to his cleaning cart, resuming his daily routine. But as he polished the glass table in the executive conference room and emptied Robert Bennett's trash can, Miguel found himself thinking about the chance encounter. He didn't know then that his simple act of helping someone with heavy boxes would set in motion events that would change not just his life, but the lives of many in his community. All he knew was that for the first time in 15 years, someone at Westlake had seen him as more than just the janitor, and somehow, that made the routine of his day feel different, like the beginning of something new. The days following Miguel's encounter with Sophia brought subtle changes to his routine. Each morning as he cleaned the executive floor, he found himself glancing toward the foundation office, wondering if she might be there early again. Twice that week they crossed paths in the hallway. Sophia greeted him by name, asking how his day was going. Small gestures that nonetheless made him feel seen in a way he hadn't experienced in his 15 years at Westlake Technologies. On Saturday, Miguel arrived at the community center on Elm Street earlier than usual. He swept the woodshop floor twice, organized the tools with extra care, and even brought fresh coffee for the parent volunteers. He told himself it was just normal preparation, but deep down, He knew he was hoping Sophia would make good on her promise to visit. By 3 o'clock, with just an hour left in his carpentry class, Miguel had given up hope. He focused on helping 10-year-old Luis sand down the edges of a small birdhouse, showing him how to move with the grain of the wood. Not too hard, Miguel guided gently. Let the sandpaper do the work. The boy's tongue poked out in concentration as he tried to follow Miguel's instructions. Around them, 6 other children worked on similar projects, the room filled with the soft scratch of sandpaper and occasional questions. "Mr. Miguel, is this smooth enough?" called out little Anna from across the table, holding up her half-finished project. As Miguel moved to check Anna's work, the workshop door opened. He looked up to see Sophia standing in the doorway, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, a far cry from her professional attire at the office. She smiled when their eyes met, and Miguel felt an unexpected rush of pride that she had actually come. "Sorry I'm late," she said, walking over. "I got caught up talking with Mrs. Rodriguez about the after-school programs." "You met Elena?" Miguel asked, surprised. Elena Rodriguez had been the center's director for over a decade, stretching limited resources through sheer determination and countless volunteer hours. Sophia nodded. "She gave me the full tour. This place is amazing, Miguel. I had no idea how many services you provide with such a small space and budget." Before Miguel could respond, Luis tugged at his sleeve. "Mr. Miguel, who is she?" the boy asked, eyeing Sophia curiously. "This is Ms. Sophia," Miguel explained. "She works at the same building where I work during the week, and she's interested in our woodshop class." "Do you know how to make birdhouses too?" Luis asked Sophia directly. She laughed, shaking her head. "I don't, but it looks like you're doing a great job. Maybe you could teach me someday." Luis beamed at the suggestion, and soon the other children were crowding around, eager to show their projects to the visitor. Miguel watched as Sophia knelt down to their level, asking questions and complimenting their work with genuine interest. She wasn't just being polite, she was truly engaged. For the remainder of the class, Sophia observed, as Miguel guided the children through the final steps of their projects. When the parents arrived for pickup, she helped distribute the completed birdhouses, watching the children's faces light up with pride as they showed off their creations. After the last child left, Miguel began cleaning up the woodshop. Sophia grabbed a broom without being asked and started sweeping sawdust from the floor. "You don't have to do that," Miguel said, surprised. "I want to help," she replied simply. "Besides, I want to hear more about this place." As they cleaned, Miguel found himself opening up. He told Sophia how he'd started volunteering 8 years ago when the center needed repairs they couldn't afford. What began as a one-time fix of broken shelves had turned into a weekly commitment when he realized how many neighborhood kids had nowhere safe to go after school. Most of their parents worked long hours, Miguel explained, wiping down the workbench. Some work 2 or 3 jobs. These kids are often alone until evening. The center gives them somewhere to be, something constructive to do. "And they clearly adore you," Sophia observed. "I could see it in how they listen when you speak." Miguel felt his cheeks warm at the compliment. "They're good kids. They just need someone to believe in them." He paused, then added, "That's what this place does. It believes in people when the rest of the world doesn't always notice them." They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. As Miguel locked up the workshop, Elena Rodriguez appeared in the hallway, keys in hand. "Miguel, are you and your friend joining us for the community meeting?" she asked. "We're discussing the budget cuts." Miguel had forgotten about the meeting. He looked at Sophia apologetically. "You probably need to get going." "Actually, I'd like to stay if that's all right," Sophia said. "I'm interested in learning more about the center's challenges." They followed Elena to a small meeting room where about 15 people had gathered around a folding table, regular volunteers, parents, and a few neighborhood elders. Miguel introduced Sophia simply as a friend from work, not mentioning her connection to Westlake Technologies or her father. The meeting's focus quickly became clear. The center was in financial trouble. City funding had been cut by 30%, and their grant applications had been rejected. Without additional resources, They would have to reduce hours and eliminate several programs, including the woodshop class and English language instruction. We have enough to keep the lights on through summer, Elena explained, her voice tired but determined. After that, we'll have to make difficult choices. Miguel watched Sophia taking notes as each person spoke about what the center meant to them and the community. An older woman described how the English classes had helped her find better work. A single father explained that without the after-school programs, he would have to cut back his working hours to care for his children, pushing his family closer to eviction. When the meeting ended, Miguel walked Sophia to her car. The spring evening had turned cool, and streetlights cast long shadows across the community center's small parking lot. "Thank you for showing me around today," Sophia said as they reached her car, "and for letting me stay for the meeting. I had no idea things were so precarious here." Miguel nodded, looking back at the modest building that had become his second home. For weeks he had been wrestling with a thought, an idea that seemed impossible. But something about Sophia's presence, her genuine interest in the center, gave him courage. "Sophia," he began, his voice hesitant. "I know this might seem forward, but I've been wondering. The Westlake Foundation supports community programs, right?" "Yes," she replied. "That's exactly what we do." Miguel took a deep breath. Is there any chance the foundation might consider helping the center? Even a small grant would make a huge difference. Or maybe just advice on where else we might apply for funding." As soon as the words left his mouth, Miguel felt a wave of embarrassment. Who was he to ask the CEO's daughter for money? He was just the janitor who cleaned her father's office. "I'm sorry," he backpedaled quickly. "I shouldn't have asked. It's not your problem." Sophia touched his arm gently, stopping his retreat. "Miguel, this is exactly the kind of work our foundation was created to support. I can't make any promises, but I'd like to look into it." "Really?" Miguel couldn't hide his surprise. "Yes, really," she said with a smile. "Can I get some specific information from you and Elena? Budget numbers, program details, that sort of thing? I'll need to put together a proper proposal." Relief and gratitude washed over Miguel. "Of course, I can get everything to you by Monday." "Perfect. And Miguel?" Sophia paused, her expression sincere. "Thank you for trusting me enough to ask. That can't have been easy." On his drive home, Miguel replayed the conversation in his mind. He had worked at Westlake for 15 years, walking the same hallways as some of the wealthiest people in the city, yet he had never once considered asking for help. Not for himself, that wasn't his way, but for the center, for the children and families who depended on it. He had no idea if anything would come from his simple request. The foundation probably received hundreds of appeals each month. Why would his be any different? Still, for the first time in months, Miguel felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. The next morning, Miguel rose before dawn as usual. As he drove to Westlake Technologies in the quiet early hours, he thought about the two worlds he inhabited: the gleaming corporate tower where he worked in anonymity, and the struggling community center where he was Mr. Miguel, the man who taught children to build with their hands and believe in themselves. For years, those worlds had remained separate. Now, because he had taken a chance and helped a young woman with heavy boxes, they had begun to intersect. Miguel didn't know what would happen next, but as he parked his old Honda in its usual spot and prepared for another day of cleaning offices most people never noticed, he felt something had fundamentally changed. The simple request had been made. All he could do now was wait and hope that somehow it might make a difference. On Wednesday afternoon, Sophia Bennett sat in her office at the Westlake Foundation, staring at the folder Miguel had given her. True to his word, he had delivered. The first thing Monday morning, a simple manila envelope containing everything she had asked for: the center's budget, program descriptions, attendance records, and a handwritten note from Elena Rodriguez detailing their most urgent needs. The numbers were sobering. The center operated on less than what Westlake Technologies spent on office supplies each month. Yet they managed to serve over 200 families, providing essential services that kept children safe and helped parents work without worry. Sophia had reviewed dozens of grant applications since joining the foundation, But something about this one felt different. Perhaps it was because she had met Miguel, had seen firsthand how much he cared. Or maybe it was the stark contrast between the wealth that surrounded her daily and the modest community center fighting to keep its doors open. She checked her watch. 3:30. First, her next meeting wasn't until tomorrow morning. A sudden impulse took hold of her, and before she could reconsider, Sophia grabbed her purse and the folder and headed for the elevator. "Taking off early?" asked Tanya, her colleague, as Sophia hurried past. "Field research," Sophia called back with a smile. "I'll see you tomorrow." 45 minutes later, Sophia parked outside the Elm Street Community Center. She had deliberately come on a Wednesday, knowing from the schedule that Miguel wouldn't be there. She wanted to see the center on an ordinary day, without anyone putting on a special presentation for the CEO's daughter. The building looked different in the afternoon light, more worn around the edges than she had noticed on Saturday. Paint peeled near the roofline, and one of the front steps had a crack running through it. Still, colorful handprints decorated the concrete path leading to the entrance, evidence of some long-ago art project. Inside, the center hummed with activity. Children of various ages clustered in different rooms, some doing homework with volunteers, others engaged in art projects or computer activities. No one paid much attention to Sophia as she wandered through the hallways, observing quietly. In one room, teenagers huddled around outdated computers, working on what appeared to be resume writing. In another, a group of younger children practiced reading aloud, taking turns with dog-eared books. The furniture was mismatched, the supplies clearly donated or bought secondhand, but there was an undeniable warmth to the place. "Can I help you?" A woman in her 60s approached Sophia, her gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. "I'm just looking around," Sophia explained. "I visited on Saturday during the carpentry class, and I wanted to see what other programs you offer." The woman's face brightened. "You must be the friend Miguel mentioned. I'm Dolores, one of the volunteer coordinators. Would you like a proper tour?" For the next hour, Dolores showed Sophia every corner of the center, introducing her to volunteers and explaining the various programs. There was clearly a system to the apparent chaos, a carefully orchestrated effort to maximize limited resources. "Most of our volunteers have full-time jobs," Dolores explained, as they watched an elderly man help a young boy with math problems. "They come when they can, give what they can. Some, like Miguel, have been with us for years." "Miguel seems very dedicated," Sophia said, hoping to learn more about him. Dolores nodded, her expression fond. "That man is a blessing. Started out just fixing things around here. A leaky sink, broken chairs, that sort of thing. Then one day he brought in some wood scraps from a construction site and showed a few kids how to build a simple birdhouse. Before you know it, we had a weekly carpentry class." They continued walking, passing a small kitchen where two women prepared what appeared to be a community dinner. "We serve meals 3 times a week," Dolores explained. "For many families, it's the only hot dinner they'll get. The food is donated by local restaurants and grocery stores, whatever they can spare." As they rounded the corner, Sophia noticed a familiar figure at the end of the hallway. Miguel stood on a stepladder, replacing a flickering fluorescent light. He wore jeans and a faded t-shirt instead of his work uniform, and he hadn't noticed them yet. "I thought he only came on Saturdays," Sophia said, surprised. Dolores chuckled. "Oh, Miguel's here most evenings. If something breaks, he fixes it. If we're short-handed in the kitchen, he chops vegetables. If a child needs help with homework, he sits and figures it out with them." She shook her head with admiration. "That man works a full day cleaning your fancy building, then comes here and works another 4 or 5 hours for free." Sophia felt a twinge of guilt. She had never really considered what Miguel's life was like outside of Westlake Technologies, how he spent his evenings, or what mattered to him. In her world, people volunteered as networking opportunities or to fulfill community service requirements. Miguel's dedication seemed to come from a deeper place. "Does he have family?" she asked, watching as he carefully secured the new light fixture. "A sister and her kids in Arizona. No one local." Dolores lowered her voice. "He sends most of his paycheck to them. His brother-in-law got hurt in a construction accident a few years back. Can't work like he used to." The information shifted something in Sophia's understanding. Miguel wasn't just giving his time. He was giving from what little he had. And he had never mentioned it, not once. Just then, Miguel turned and spotted them. His surprise was evident as he quickly climbed down the ladder and approached. "Sophia, I didn't expect to see you here today," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "I wanted to get a better feel for the center's daily operations," she explained. "Dolores has been showing me around." Miguel glanced between them, a question in his eyes. Sophia realized he might be worried about what Dolores had shared. "I've been telling her what a gift you are to this place," Dolores said, patting Miguel's arm. "Now if you'll excuse me, I should check on dinner preparations." As Dolores walked away, a moment of awkward silence hung between Miguel and Sophia. "You didn't have to come back," Miguel finally said. "I know you're busy." "I wanted to," Sophia replied honestly. "The more I learn about this place, the more impressed I am." She hesitated, then added, "Why didn't you tell me you're here almost every day?" Miguel shrugged, looking embarrassed. "It didn't seem important. I just do what needs doing, like everyone else here." "But you already work full-time, Miguel." "And Dolores mentioned your sister's family." "Dolores talks too much," Miguel interrupted gently. "My sister's situation is not why I'm asking for help for the center. This place deserves support because of the good it does, not because of my personal connection to it." Sophia nodded, respecting his privacy. "Fair enough. Would you mind showing me the wood shop again? I'd like to take some photos for my proposal." Relief crossed Miguel's face at the change of subject. As they walked toward the workshop, a small boy darted out of a classroom and collided with Miguel's legs. "Mr. Miguel," the boy exclaimed, looking up with a gap-toothed smile. "I got an A on my math test." "Just like you said I would." Miguel's entire demeanor transformed. He knelt down to the boy's level, his face bright with genuine pride. "You did? That's fantastic, Ricky. I told you all that practice would pay off." The boy handed Miguel a crumpled test paper with a red A circled at the top. "My mom says if I keep getting good grades, maybe I can be an engineer someday." "You absolutely can," Miguel assured him, studying the test with serious attention. "These problem-solving skills are exactly what engineers need." He pointed to a particular question. "See how you worked through this step by step? That's perfect thinking." Sophia watched the interaction, struck by the natural way Miguel encouraged the child. There was no condescension, no false praise, just authentic belief in the boy's potential. After the excited child ran off to share his success with others, Miguel turned back to Sophia with a slightly embarrassed smile. "Sorry about that. Ricky's been struggling with math anxiety. We've been working on it for a few weeks. You tutor him?" Sophia asked. "Not formally. He just needs someone to sit with him, break problems down into steps he can understand." Miguel shrugged as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "It's not really tutoring, just being there." In the woodshop, Sophia took photos as Miguel explained how they made the most of donated materials. They used reclaimed wood from construction sites, tools donated by retired craftsmen, even hardware salvaged from discarded furniture. Nothing went to waste. "The kids learn more than just woodworking," Miguel explained, showing her a beautifully made jewelry box. "They learn patience, problem-solving, how to follow instructions. And there's something special about creating something with your hands, something you can be proud of." The passion in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't just a hobby or a volunteer position for Miguel. It was a calling. As the center began preparing for the community dinner, Sophia realized she had been there for hours. The foundation proposal she had planned to write seemed inadequate now. A small grant might keep the lights on for a few more months, but this place needed more than a temporary fix. "I should go," she said, checking her watch. "Thank you for showing me around." Miguel walked her to her car, the evening air cool against their faces. Children's laughter spilled from the open windows of the center, mixing with the smells of the community dinner being prepared inside. "I hope what you saw today was helpful for your proposal," Miguel said, his expression earnest. Sophia nodded, her mind already racing with ideas far beyond what Miguel had asked for. "It was very helpful. I'll be in touch soon." Driving back to her apartment, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about what she had witnessed. The contrast between the gleaming Westlake Technologies Tower and the humble community center was stark, yet both served essential purposes. One created wealth and innovation, the other created community and opportunity. And Miguel Hernandez, the quiet janitor who had worked at Westlake for 15 years, somehow bridged both worlds without anyone noticing, until now. For 3 days following her visit to the community center, Sophia barely left her office. She canceled lunch meetings, postponed calls, and kept her door closed with a "Do Not Disturb" sign she had never used before. Her colleagues at the Westlake Foundation exchanged curious glances, but none dared interrupt whatever had captured her complete attention. Inside her office, Sophia was building something far more ambitious than the simple grant proposal Miguel had requested. Page by page, spreadsheet by spreadsheet, she constructed a vision that had kept her awake for 3 straight nights. The walls around her desk were covered with photos of the center, charts showing budget projections, and sticky notes filled with ideas. When she finally emerged late Friday afternoon, Sophia carried a thick binder labeled Riverdale Community Initiative. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but her face glowed with purpose as she headed to the executive floor. "Is my father available?" she asked his assistant. "He's finishing up a call." "But you're next on his calendar," the assistant replied, eyeing the binder with curiosity. Robert Bennett's office occupied the northeast corner of the 42nd floor, offering sweeping views of the city. As Sophia waited, she glanced around the immaculate space, suddenly seeing it through new eyes. The marble desk alone probably cost more than the community center's entire annual budget. The thought made her grip the binder tighter. When Robert emerged from his private conference room, his expression brightened at the sight of his daughter. "There you are. Tanya said you've been holed up working on something big." He gestured toward a sitting area by the windows. "Show me what's got you looking like you haven't slept in days." Sophia took a deep breath. She had practiced this presentation countless times, but now that the moment had arrived, butterflies swarmed in her stomach. This wasn't just about securing funding for a worthy cause. It was about changing her father's perception of what their company's foundation could and should be doing. "Dad, you've always taught me that Westlake Technologies should lead by example," she began, opening her binder. "That innovation isn't just about products, but about making meaningful changes in the world." Robert nodded, his expression curious. "That's been my philosophy since day one. Well, I've found an opportunity for us to truly live those values." Sophia laid out photographs of the community center. "This is the Elm Street Community Center in Riverdale. It serves over 200 families in one of the city's most underserved neighborhoods." For the next 30 minutes, Sophia walked her father through everything she had discovered: the center's programs, its impact on the community, the dedication of its volunteers, and its precarious financial situation. She showed him photos of children learning in outdated classrooms, graphs illustrating the center's efficient use of limited resources, and testimonials she had gathered from families who depended on its services. "They're doing remarkable work, Dad, but they're about to lose city funding. Without immediate intervention, they'll have to close their doors within months." Robert studied the materials with the careful attention he gave to all business proposals. "This certainly seems like a worthy cause for a foundation grant," he said finally. "I assume you're looking for board approval?" Sophia took another deep breath. "Actually, I'm proposing something much bigger than a one-time grant." She turned to the last section of her binder and pulled out a comprehensive plan that had taken her 3 sleepless nights to perfect. What she was suggesting wasn't just financial support for one community center, but a complete overhaul of Westlake's approach to corporate social responsibility. "I'm proposing the Westlake Community Partnership Initiative," she explained, "a pilot program that would not only save the Elm Street Center but transform it into a model for what corporate community partnerships could look like across the city." The plan included renovations to the center's facilities, technology upgrades, educational programs aligned with future employment needs, and ongoing mentorship from Westlake employees. Most radically, it proposed hiring community members as paid staff rather than relying solely on volunteers. "This goes far beyond our usual grant-making," Robert observed, his tone neutral but his eyes keen with interest. "What sparked this particular center?" "There must be dozens of similar facilities in the city." Sophia hesitated. She hadn't mentioned Miguel in her presentation, unsure if bringing up the janitor's role would help or hurt her case. But looking at her father's shrewd expression, she knew honesty was her best approach. "I learned about it from someone who works here at Westlake," she admitted. "Miguel Hernandez. He's been on the maintenance staff for 15 years. "The head janitor?" Robert looked genuinely surprised. "I know Miguel, of course. He's cleaned my office every day for over a decade. Quiet fellow, always professional. I had no idea he was involved with community work. He volunteers there almost every evening after working a full day here." Sophia explained. He teaches carpentry to kids, fixes things around the building, helps with homework. Dad, he's making a real difference in these children's lives. She pulled out her phone and showed her father a photo she had taken of Miguel helping young Ricky with his math homework. The image captured the gentle patience in Miguel's expression, the trust and concentration on the boy's face. He approached me about a small grant for the center, Sophia continued. But when I visited and saw what they're doing with almost nothing, I realized we have an opportunity to do something truly transformative. Robert was silent for a long moment, studying the photo of Miguel and the child. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. 15 years, he mused. 15 years he's worked here, and I knew nothing about this side of his life. He looked up at Sophia. This is more than a foundation proposal for you, isn't it? This feels personal. Sophia nodded, relieved he understood. It is. Seeing the contrast between our world here and what's happening just a few miles away in Riverdale. It changed something in me, Dad, and knowing that Miguel bridges both worlds every day, without any recognition or reward, Robert finished for her. Exactly. It made me question what we're really doing with the foundation. Are we just writing checks to look good in the annual report? Or are we truly committed to making a difference? The challenge in her words hung in the air between them. For a moment, Sophia feared she had pushed too hard. Her father was supportive of her career, but he was still the CEO, and she had essentially criticized the company's approach to philanthropy. To her surprise, Robert smiled. You know, when I suggested you join the foundation instead of the executive training program, your mother said I was making a mistake. He closed the binder and handed it back to her. She said putting you in charge of giving away money instead of making it would come back to bite me. I think she was right, but not in the way she meant. What do you mean? Sophia asked cautiously. I mean, you've found your purpose, Sophia, and it's not following in my footsteps as I'd once hoped. He gestured toward the binder. This is bold thinking. It challenges our current approach. It's exactly what the foundation needs. Hope surged in Sophia's chest. Does that mean? It means I'll support bringing this to the board. Robert held up a cautioning hand. I can't promise they'll approve everything you're proposing. The scope is ambitious, and some of the directors are quite traditional in their views on corporate giving. I understand, Sophia said quickly. I'm prepared to defend every aspect of the proposal. I'm sure you are. Robert glanced at his watch. The board meets on Tuesday morning. Can you be ready to present then? Absolutely, Sophia agreed, already mentally preparing her pitch. As she gathered her materials to leave, a thought occurred to her. Dad, do you think we should tell Miguel about this before the board meeting? I don't want to get his hopes up, but he did initiate the request. Robert considered this. No, he said finally. Let's wait until we have something concrete to share. Better to exceed expectations than to disappoint. Sophia nodded, though part of her felt uncomfortable keeping Miguel in the dark. Each morning that week, he had carefully inquired about the status of his simple grant request, and each time she had told him it was in process, feeling guilty about the massive undertaking she had actually set in motion. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Sophia refined her presentation, anticipated objections, and built compelling responses. By Monday evening, she felt as ready as she would ever be to face the Westlake Technologies Board of Directors, 12 of the most successful business leaders in the city, including her father. That night, sleep eluded her again, but not from stress or anxiety. Instead, her mind kept returning to the community center, to the children she had met there, and to Miguel Hernandez, who had no idea that his simple request had sparked something much bigger than he had ever imagined. Tuesday morning arrived with a clarity that only comes after a significant decision has been made. As Sophia dressed in her most professional outfit, a navy blue suit her mother had insisted she needed for serious business, she felt a calm certainty that this day would change the course of many lives, including her own. At precisely 9:30 a.m., Robert's assistant ushered Sophia into the Westlake Technologies boardroom. 12 pairs of eyes turned to assess her as she entered. Some were curious, others skeptical, a few openly supportive. Good morning, she began, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. Thank you for allowing me to present today. What I'm about to propose represents not just a new direction for the Westlake Foundation, but a new vision for how our company can truly impact the communities we serve. As she launched into her presentation, Sophia thought briefly of Miguel, who at this very moment was probably cleaning the executive floor, unaware that upstairs, his simple request was transforming into something far beyond what either of them had originally envisioned. 4 weeks had passed since Miguel's simple request, and he had heard nothing definite from Sophia. Each time he saw her in the hallways of Westlake Technologies, she offered the same gentle smile and vague reassurance. Still working on it? He had begun to lose hope, assuming his request had been lost among more important foundation priorities. On this particular Saturday morning, Miguel arrived at the community center earlier than usual. Elena had called the night before, asking if he could help set up for a neighborhood meeting. Apparently someone from the city council was coming to discuss future funding. Just what we need, Miguel had thought tiredly. Another politician making promises they won't keep. The parking lot was surprisingly empty when he arrived. Miguel used his key to unlock the front door, the familiar squeak of the hinges reminding him that it was yet another thing that needed fixing. Inside, the center was quiet and dim, unusual for a Saturday morning when children typically filled the rooms with noise and energy. "Elena?" he called out, flipping on lights as he moved through the hallway. "Anyone here?" No answer. Miguel checked his watch, confirming he had the right time. He pulled out his phone to call Elena when he noticed a piece of paper taped to the door of the main activity room. "Miguel, we're in here. Please join us." The handwriting wasn't Elena's. Puzzled, Miguel pushed open the door and froze at the threshold. The large room was filled with people, not just the usual center volunteers and families, but faces he recognized from Westlake Technologies. In the front row sat Robert Bennett himself, CEO of the company where Miguel had worked for 15 years. Beside him was Sophia, smiling nervously. Elena stood near them, along with Dolores and other center staff, all looking expectant and oddly emotional. "What's going on?" Miguel asked, not moving from the doorway. "Please come in," Sophia said, gesturing to an empty chair in the front. "We've been waiting for you." In a daze, Miguel made his way to the seat, nodding awkwardly to Mr. Bennett, whom he had seen almost daily for years, but had rarely spoken to directly. The room fell silent as Sophia stepped to the front, carrying a small remote control. 4 weeks ago, she began, her voice clear and confident, Miguel Hernandez made a simple request. He asked if the Westlake Foundation might be able to help this community center with a small grant. She smiled at Miguel. What he didn't realize was how that simple question would change everything. She clicked the remote, and a projection screen lowered from the ceiling. New equipment that definitely hadn't been there the previous weekend. An image appeared. Architectural drawings of a building that looked somewhat like the community center, but larger, more modern. Miguel's request led me to visit this center, to meet the amazing people who work and volunteer here, and to witness the incredible impact you all have on this community, despite limited resources. Sophia's gaze swept the room. What I saw inspired me to think bigger, much bigger than a simple grant. The next hour passed in a blur for Miguel. He watched as Sophia presented the Westlake Community Partnership Initiative, a comprehensive plan to not only save the center but transform it into what she called a model for corporate community collaboration. The presentation included blueprints for renovations, technology upgrades, educational programs, and even a staffing plan that would create paid positions for many of the center's current volunteers. The Westlake Technologies Board of Directors unanimously approved the initiative last month, Sophia announced. To gasps and murmurs from the audience, construction will begin next week and should be completed within 6 months. Miguel sat stunned, unable to fully process what he was hearing. His simple request for help keeping the lights on had somehow sparked this. It seemed impossible. Robert Bennett rose from his seat and joined his daughter at the front of the room. "When Sophia first brought this proposal to me," he said, his deep voice commanding attention, "I was impressed by the vision, but what truly moved me was learning about the dedication of the people in this room, especially one person who has quietly bridged the gap between our corporate world and this community for years." He turned toward Miguel, who felt the weight of every gaze in the room shift to him. "Miguel Hernandez has cleaned my office every day for 15 years, Robert continued. He has been a model employee, reliable, thorough, respectful. Yet in all that time I never knew that after working a full day at Westlake, He came here almost every evening to volunteer his time, skills, and heart to this community. The words hung in the air, and Miguel felt a heat rising in his face. He had never sought recognition for his work at the center. It was simply part of who he was, what he believed in. Miguel, Robert addressed him directly now. Your dedication to this community center exemplifies the values we claim to stand for at Westlake Technologies. You've been quietly living those values while the rest of us just talk about them. Elena stepped forward, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Miguel has been the backbone of this center for 8 years, she added. He fixes everything that breaks, teaches our children, and never asks for anything in return. Miguel wanted to disappear into his chair. He had never been comfortable with praise, especially not in front of a crowd. That's why, Sophia said, clicking to a new slide, the board has approved one final element of our initiative. The screen displayed the words Miguel Hernandez Community Leadership Institute over an image of the redesigned building. A collective gasp rose from the audience, followed by applause that quickly grew to a standing ovation. Miguel sat frozen, certain he had misunderstood. We're renaming the center in your honor, Sophia explained, her voice barely audible over the continuing applause. And we want to offer you a position as the Institute's first director of community engagement. The room began to spin slightly. Miguel gripped the edges of his chair, trying to ground himself in reality. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. This would be a full-time salaried position, Robert added, with benefits, educational assistance, and the opportunity to build something truly meaningful for this community. Miguel finally found his voice, though it came out rough with emotion. I don't understand. I just clean the building. I'm just the janitor. You've never been just anything, Miguel, Sophia said gently. You've been a teacher, a mentor, a builder, and a leader. Now we want to give you the platform and resources to do even more. The next few minutes passed in a haze as people crowded around, offering congratulations and sharing stories of how Miguel had helped them or their children. Young Ricky pushed through the adults to hug Miguel tightly, declaring, Now you can help everybody with math, Mr. Miguel. Eventually, the crowd thinned as people moved toward a refreshment table that had been set up at the back of the room. Miguel found himself in a quiet corner with Sophia and her father. I don't know what to say, he admitted, his hands still trembling slightly. This is overwhelming. You don't have to decide right now, Robert assured him. Take some time to think about the position. It would mean leaving your job at Westlake, of course, but the salary is more than twice what you're currently making, Sophia interjected, and the educational assistance would cover any classes or degrees you might want to pursue. Miguel shook his head, not in refusal, but in continued disbelief. When I asked about a small grant, I never imagined anything like this. Sometimes the smallest actions lead to the biggest changes, Sophia said. Your request made me look at things differently. It made all of us look at things differently. She glanced at her father, who nodded in agreement. I've learned more about corporate responsibility from watching you these past few weeks than from all my years running the company, Robert admitted. You've changed how we think about our role in the community, Miguel. This center is just the beginning. As the impromptu celebration continued around him, Miguel stepped outside for a moment, needing fresh air and space to process everything. The spring sun warmed his face as he gazed at the modest building that had been his second home for so many years. Soon it would be transformed, renamed in his honor, offering even more services to the community he loved. And he would no longer be the man who cleaned floors by day and fixed things by night. He would be a director, with a salary that would allow him to help his sister's family without stretching his own resources to the breaking point. He could finally finish his own education, maybe even get the degree he had abandoned decades ago when family needs became more pressing than personal dreams. All because of a simple request. The door opened behind him, and Sophia stepped out, concern in her eyes. Are you all right? It's a lot to take in, I know. Miguel turned to her, finding his voice at last. Why me? Why all of this? Sophia leaned against the wall beside him, considering her answer carefully. When I first started at the foundation, my father told me to look for opportunities where our resources could make the biggest difference. After seeing this place, meeting these people, understanding what you've accomplished with almost nothing, she shrugged. It just made sense. And the job offer? Naming the center after me? That seems Miguel searched for the word. Deserved, Sophia finished for him. Though I know you'd never ask for that recognition. Miguel looked back at the building, trying to imagine it transformed, trying to imagine himself transformed along with it. I'm not sure I'm qualified to run something like this. You've already been running it, Miguel. You've been the heart of this place for years. Now you'll just have the resources and authority to do it better. She touched his arm gently. Think about it at least. Inside, the celebration continued. Miguel could hear children laughing, adults talking excitedly about the future. His future. Their future. Intertwined in ways he never could have imagined when he first offered to help a young woman with heavy boxes one rainy morning. I don't need to think about it, he said finally, a sense of clarity washing over him. I want to do this. I want to build something that will last, something that will help this community for generations. Sophia's face broke into a radiant smile. Then let's go back inside, Director Hernandez. You have a lot of people waiting to hear your vision for the Miguel Hernandez Community Leadership Institute. As they walked back toward the building, Miguel's heart felt fuller than he could ever remember. His simple request had led to an unbelievable surprise, not just for the center or the community, but for himself. After decades of helping others build their dreams, he was finally being given the chance to build something of his own. And it had all started with a chance encounter and the courage to ask a simple question.